This is the 21st of April and 2024, and it's the NGL intro about making decisions that care for all of us, needs, impacts, resources.
Interesting that you said care for all of us. And I think the title is Care for More of Us. And I think the longing is to care for all of us. And we're so far from that longing that I would like to at least get better at caring for more of us than we are able to at present. So I'd like to take a moment to hear from a couple of people what led you to join us today, and maybe someone who was here at the original one and someone who wasn't, so we get a little mix of why people are here. Anybody up for sharing what brought you here today?
I can share, Mickey.
Yeah.
I wasn't here the original intro. In fact, that's the first intro that I'm taking part in. Partially, I'll be here for an hour. However, I've listened to the recording of the previous one more than once. And the reason I am here is because Aurelia and I, this past week, offered a training in for a women's organization on power and privilege dynamics, and we used some of the slides that you created for this session, and in fact took quite a bit of the material to share with them what it takes to make decisions that care for more of us, particularly across power differences. So when I saw you are redoing it today, I thought, oh, I didn't know about that, and I just thought I'd turn up for a little while because it's just been very present, and I was wrestling with some of the concepts, and I think it'll be really good to be here for a while to kind of go back into the soup of needs, impacts, and resources.
Thank you. I was having a brief conversation with Aurelia this morning, and I was remarking on how so much of what is done in relation to power and privilege is, let's do an event about power and privilege over here, but everything else we keep as is. So if we are doing some organizational development, it will be as is. If we're doing some training in mediation, it will be as is. And we have a training in power and privilege, and that there is a particular woman that I am endlessly grateful for. Caroline Blackwell is her name. She's in the US. And she came to a training where she was the only Black woman. And she had enough trust in me from previous encounters to express her concern about what was happening. And it was in conversation with her that this thing completely turned around for me. It's like power and privilege is not a thing over here. It is woven and threaded through everything, or it doesn't mean anything. For as long as this is why I refuse to have a power and privilege system. Because if you have a power and privilege system, then all other systems would say, okay, we don't need to do anything about power and privilege because they do. So there's something about the rigor of figuring out how items of power and privilege influence everything, and how everything that we do, we need to add the question on what happens when there are power differences, which is almost always that we have power differences. What happens then to everything? So yeah, it was fun to have that conversation, and these sets of this set of slides really makes it obvious why that is. Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Hannah.
Hi, this is my first intro that I'm joining. I'm going through a process of trying to learn about this kind of decision making at the moment, and it's I've been listening to the recording, and it's really, I'm feeling really curious about how to become more fluent with these kinds of noticing these kinds of things, and becoming more aware of the power differences at play, particularly as I go through my day-to-day with young kids and all the challenges of hearing them and making decisions that involve them and don't just impose upon them. I'm really, really curious to learn more. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, that feels like enough. So I want to do a brief review of the content. This is really, really, really a dense set of materials, and I am going to make the assumption that everybody either was at the original one or listened or watched it, and this is just a review. You will not get the full content from listening to this review. And, I surrender. Life is what life is. So when I look at decision making, it's one of the areas where I carry the most grief in terms of the gap between what I see as possible and what is actually happening. The reason I have so much grief is because it is actually super simple to make decisions when you're not wrapped up in patriarchal conditioning. It is really super simple. It's based on information and creativity and togetherness. That's all that you need. You need enough information about what all the needs are. Simple, right? It's not difficult. It's not rocket science to know what are all the needs involved. But it becomes worse than rocket science when there are all these mechanisms that prevent us from sensing, knowing, framing, and bringing forward our needs, as well as from being able to hear others' needs and not go into scarcity reaction. Second piece of information is what are all the impacts that people are carrying or anticipating or have had or know about or are likely to come. Again, that is information. And the information is blocked because we filter it through the lens of shame and blame. So even when I say to someone in very simple terms, this is what I see happening, this is what the impact on me is, and then if I even know to do that without shaming or blaming, then the other person will supply all the shame and blame that I didn't put into it and reintroduce it. I just had a lovely interaction with someone who was sharing with me last week, collected from a bunch of people, unbeknownst to me, different ways in which they have benefited from me being in their life or contributing to their life or giving them something that they can use in their work, and sent me the list of all of that. It was intended to nourish my spirit, and it did. And I had an interaction with this person today, all via email, very gentle, very loving, in which it became clear that she wasn't sure if it was going to work and was a little nervous that it was going to have an impact on me. And it's like, so what if it's going to have an impact on me? That's information that we can learn from. So if it doesn't work for me, we now know this works, this doesn't work. And next time we have the information about what's likely to work better. And we don't do it like this. And it was very, very actually settling for her. And we ended with a whole bunch of emojis. Although I don't know how to do emojis, so I just say emojis. But it was very sweet because we were able to land there, but so much of the time we don't. And then the last piece of information is what are the resources that are available to care for the needs? And again, it's simple information that rarely gets transmitted or shared or heard accurately because we are wrapped up in fairness and who deserves what and who should do what and all of these things instead of just the simplicity of information. So that's why I'm in grief, because every little bit of the information that we would need to make simple decisions, even about super complex problems, gets mangled through all the conditioning and the systems that we live in. That's the first theme. The second theme is that there are things we can do about it, work that we can do as individuals to increase self-responsibility, to increase self-awareness, to increase courage, to increase compassion, to increase generosity. General standard liberation work helps with both the giving and the receiving of the information. Also, there are more and more people in the world. There's still a minuscule amount of them, but there are more and more people in the world who have studied convergent facilitation and know how to translate things back from what people mangle. So gradually we have that capacity. Then, if that wasn't enough, that's where the whole thing comes of what happens. What do power and privilege differences do to make it even harder to have the information on the table? And that is the layers and layers of skewing. So when there are differences of power or privilege, the people with more power, their needs are more held than those with less power. Just today, I was at a store to buy bread, simplest human activity that exists in the modern world is to go to a store and buy bread. It's like a quintessential, stereotypical, archetypal thing, even though I don't eat bread. It's for other people. I usually don't eat bread. Anyway, so I stand there in line to get the bread, and a man shows up, and they serve him first. I know that's never happened to any woman ever in the world, but it did happen to me today. So I said something about it. And the next thing I know, they were defensive first, and then somebody came and said, "It's okay, I'll serve you." And she started serving me, and then the manager came and said, "I will serve you instead." With a tone, it's like there was no question. That was a junior worker, and the person who said it was a senior worker, and the message was, "She's a difficult customer, let me handle her." There's an example. It's just a really, really, really mundane, unimportant, and terrible example. What's terrible about it is exactly that it's so mundane. And why am I a difficult customer? Because I don't accept it. I don't accept the order in which people with more power get served first. And if you don't accept it, you become a problem. So that's one piece. And I already started on the second piece, which is there is an expectation built into the system that the people with less power will absorb the impacts from the people with more power and saying nothing about it. There's also a very real phenomenon that when the people with less power do have the courage and strength or whatever to share the impact, there's backlash. So it's not just, I don't have enough strength. I don't have enough strength to face what I have already seen happen to me and to many others. It's not just, I'm a wimp. It's not easy work. And all the gifts and ideas and perspectives are also skewed. The people with less power are expected to do the mundane tasks. The people with more power are expected to do the thinking. The thinking of the people with less power is devalued. The people with more power don't know how to do the basic tasks. They've been protected from them, so they're useless. There's an old joke of a professor in a boat with a young fishing family son, and as they are sailing, the professor says, "Do you know how to read?" "No." "You've lost a quarter of your life." "Do you know how to write?" "No." "You've lost another quarter of your life." "Do you know how to do math?" "No." "You've lost one more quarter of your life." Then clouds come, and the fishing boy says to the professor, "Do you know how to swim?" Says, "No." "You've lost your entire life." So this really captures that gap in a joke, but it isn't actually a joke. It actually is the case that the people with power are super dependent on the ones without power for everything, and yet that dependence is not recognized. So that's the mess that we are in. And our task is, wherever we are on the power map of the world, to learn what we can do to unskew those gaps and whose needs get to be on the table, who impacts on whom are considered significant or not significant, and all of that. So that's it. Now it's time for questions. That's the rest of our time. I'm done with my homework, which was to do a short review, and now it's all your work. And I'll see if I can answer your questions and how to make it fun. So if you want, we can put you in groups for about 10 minutes to kind of like review this, to think what you might want to ask. Would you raise your hand if you would like that to be put in small groups? Okay, I think that's enough. Let's do that. Kirsten, let's do it for like about 10 minutes.
10 minutes, including the 1 minute countdown?
Who cares? Just decide.
Okay. Auto close breakout room. 9 minutes.
Hello. Welcome back. Time for questions. And I don't know if Belen is still here. Yes. Belen, because you're not staying here and because you're teaching, I'd like to give you priority if you have any question that you would like us to explore.
I don't actually.
Okay.
In my breakout, we focused on the other person, and I don't. If I do, I'll come back to you. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Then I would like to invite people to raise your hands with your questions. I'd like to give priority. See, I'm actually doing this, and this is not something I'm doing only this time. I do it most of the time, is remind people that in terms of who speaks and who doesn't speak, the power map of the world orders that very neatly. And so I would like to invite people to consider, if you recognize yourself to be from a group that usually doesn't get to speak, and if you think, oh, but I don't have anything interesting, other people's the questions might be more important. I haven't done ... I haven't been XXX. So I'll just wait and listen and learn from others, whether that's explicit or implicit. Then this is the time for you to actually find a question and ask. And if you are have a lot of ease in speaking, asking questions, sharing your opinions, this might be a fabulous opportunity for you to relax into seeing that you can learn a lot by listening, by hearing what other people ask, what other people say. And it's a different channel from active saying things. So I invite everybody to stretch in a different direction, especially in relation to what you know already about what are the patterns related to people that are to groups that you are part of. That's it. End of spiel. Now I'd like to see some hands. And if not, we close. Tara. Hello.
Hello. So I'm a little nervous.
And let's slow down. That's my general medicine for nervousness is slow down. A lot of times people are nervous and they don't say it, so they don't get the benefit of this. But whenever somebody says they're nervous, I ask them to slow down because we are habituated to jump over the nervousness and then we don't gain any benefit that is in it. Do you know why you're nervous?
I guess I'm not used to speaking.
Yeah. So just look around. You're human among humans. With all the million of differences, you're just one human among humans. Just take it in. And thank you for accepting my invitation.
I appreciate that you extend that invitation. I feel a bit better actually.
Yeah, that's part of this crazy reality is that usually it doesn't take a very long time to settle in a different place and be more authentic and strong. And you had a question all those eons ago.
I was just seeing if I could actually get back to it there. It relates in part to the responding to the call session on Friday, of which I was part. And I don't want the question to require that people had been there. So I'll just take part of it. Part of what I learned from that session was about the value of kind of translating impacts into feedback, I think was the
Mhm.
uh, and so I'm a I've been sitting contemplating the impact that that translation process has on the person who's been impacted. and how that might affect their needs. And also, I wonder how that translation fits into this needs, impacts, and resources framework.
Mhm.
I was just wondering if you'd be willing to speak more around
Totally.
those things.
Totally. And the first thing that I want to say is that I want to never expect anyone to do anything. The moment I expect anyone to do anything, I've left the world of gentle information and entered right back into the world of right wrong thinking. An expectation is you should. And the world of you should is a world in which we can't solve our problems. On the far end of a should is always a gun. Do you see why I'm saying that? And so while I can offer to anyone in the world the radical framing that Emanueli offered on Friday, which is basically that to the extent that I'm someone with less power, when I choose to translate my impact into feedback, I'm actually stronger. I am more liberated. I'm more alive. I'm more aligned. I'm more committed to aligning means with ends. I'm more all kinds of things. And forget about all that moral crap. I'm likely to be more effective. Why? Because if I share things in a clean way, an articulated way, where I am speaking with clarity, what the information is, what has happened, why it's important, how it's related to any kind of shared purpose that we have, and all the things that go into sharing clean feedback, the chances that I will be heard shoot up dramatically. So it's a positive thing on any level, and it requires empowerment. I cannot will empowerment on people. Boy, life would be different if I could do that. If I could have a magic wand and go to someone and say, poof, you're empowered. Oh. And I can't do that. None of us can do that. We can support people. We can do all kinds of things to hold people systemically, individually, offer them empathy, offer them coaching, pull them towards vision. Whatever we can do, we cannot empower other people. I know there is a discourse of empowering, blah, blah, blah. It's a lovely discourse, but ultimately, empowerment is grace. Anyone here who has gone through any degree of dramatic empowerment at any point in your life would recognize this. It's like suddenly you see, oh, I could do this instead. And maybe somebody had told you 100 times, why don't you try doing this? But until you actually, poof, land in, yeah, I can do this, you can't. I don't know how it happened. We can try. So I don't want to expect it from the person with less power, though I will advertise it to them a lot. And if they don't do it, I want to have oodles of compassion. So I neither want to expect it from people, nor do I want to say, there, you don't need to do anything. It's all right. You don't have power. I'll take care of you. That doesn't help. Does this help in any way, Tara?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and then so in terms of so I'm empowered and I work on making that translation. When we talk about needs, impacts, and resources, is the feedback
It's
like us?
yeah, feedback is what carries the impacts. The thing is, when an impact gets shared, I forgot the second half of your question. When an impact gets shared, it needs to be metabolized in full. If it's not metabolized, the learning is going to be limited. Yeah. So, to give you an example, on a systemic, larger global level, one of the issues we deal with that makes it so difficult to make decisions that work for more people is that feedback loops are mangled. So we don't actually know the impacts of our actions. On purpose, we don't know them. I don't know if you've been around where I've used my core example for this is that every time we buy a cell phone or many other things, we are directly contributing to violence in the Republic, whatever the so-called Democratic Republic of Congo. And specifically, it's violence against women. And it's a direct link. You can make the link. It relates to rare earth minerals that exist in the Congo. And I even used to know at some point what are the links as to why it ends up affecting women in particular. Don't remember at the moment, but this has been researched and is clear. But most people don't know about this. And those who do know about this don't have any sense of clarity or information or large enough masses of numbers to say, no, I'm not going to buy that phone because I know it's going to contribute to violence. The overwhelming majority of us just keep buying the phones because the flow of information is not sufficient and there's not enough togetherness. We can't hold the needs together. Things are too separated. Supply chains are designed to make it such that the person at the end who buys doesn't know anything. So how do we make impacts more visible is a big, fat systemic question, and ultimately not what I am talking about in this intro, because this is about supporting people and actually making it work on the small scales in which we live. But if by any chance there was like a big CEO here of some company that hires 100,000 people and has supply chains all over the world, that would be a different question, because then that person might be able to influence that. And the one time in my life when I had conversations with someone who was in a position to possibly make such changes, I think at some point he made such changes and lost his position as the board president of a big transnational corporation. I don't know if those changes that he made were related to our conversations or not, but he did make them, and he did lose his position. So the systems are much bigger even than the powerful individuals that theoretically can make decisions within them. We've created a real big mess. There isn't any single person that you can point to and say, if this person does the change, then everything else will follow. It's not like that anymore. Helps. I mean, it's terrible, but it helps with clarity.
Yeah, it helps with clarity. Thank you.
Yeah. And how's the nervousness?
Very much more settled.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Now I would like to just see a show of hands. How many people are really glad that Tara asked this question? Would you raise your hand if you're glad she asked it? Yeah. Okay. Did that help?
Yes, and I really appreciated your pronoun correction too. That means a lot to me.
Thank you. All right. More questions? Aurelia, do you have any? No. Melanie.
Hi, thank you. I'm also feeling a little nervous. I don't talk in groups too much that are this big. So I guess my question is it possible, or are there practices that we can use to support going through this sort of process with people that have no interest or maybe no capacity to co-hold this kind of process?
Mhm.
So like the example I'm thinking specifically of is I live with two young boys, and the older one is verbal and is able to speak and express himself very well, and the younger is not. And so it's very easy to co-hold this process with my older son, and it's been transformative, really. And with my younger son, I find that I'm making a lot of guesses, and we make agreements, and when we find out they don't work, we try again, and then slowly we're able to work through that. But outside of our household, where we don't have this commitment and kind of symbiotic relationship, this is where I struggle. Like, we were looking to hire some caregivers for some more support. And yeah, I found myself wanting to co-hold decisions with strangers, and it was terrible. It was so uncomfortable, because I don't, yeah. So I'm interested in your thoughts.
Yeah. First thought is it took me many, many years to recognize this, and I still don't like it. I don't think I will ever like it, and I still think it's true. In a world of separation, in a world in which you're supposed to agree to disagree, accept when people leave, and all of those things, you know what I'm talking about. In that world, those of us who want togetherness are the source of the problem. We are seen as creating conflict.
Yeah.
And it actually is true, because we are actually pulling people beyond their capacity. If we are inviting people into more togetherness, then the bubble around them of separation makes possible.
Yeah.
This is the baseline interpersonal horror that we live in all the time. So I just want to take a moment to just breathe into that. That's not the end. It's just super important to remember this. The second thing isn't going to be a whole lot more fun. So the second thing is that in order for there to be enough capacity to co-hold, it requires of you, because you're the one who wants the co-holding, requires of you to compensate for any capacity that the other person doesn't have.
Yeah.
It's a kind of mathematical simplicity. It's horrible, but it's almost mathematical. The person doesn't have capacity. It takes, let's say, X capacity to co-hold. If people, let's say, divided between them 50-50, which is not anything I advocate for or means anything much, but let's say that then you need half of X, and the other person also brings half of X. if the other person can only do 10% of X, if you need X, then you need 90%. That's why I'm saying it's like it's mathematical. It isn't really, because you actually need more than 100% to cover for what another person can't do. But that's a different branch of math. The thing is that the simple reality is that it requires more of you than two things. One is that most people have capacity for, in general. I mean, we can do it some of the time with some people in some circumstances. None of us can do it 100% of the time with everyone. So it's A, beyond capacity, and B, even before you hit the capacity limit, you hit the habit limit of the thought it's not fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd had a thought that maybe if I wanted to approach it the next time, I would see if I could bring someone with me to
Yeah,
support.
that could help.
Yeah.
The thing about fairness is that it's one of the biggest obstacles to making things work for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I see that play out every day in my house. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not fair for me to have to accommodate you.
Yeah.
Who cares if it's fair or not? If you don't have capacity, I must accommodate you. If you don't have capacity and I don't accommodate you, we will both suffer. That's it.
Right.
I don't like it.
Yeah. But it's,
I don't
yeah.
like it not because it's not fair. I don't like it because when I have more capacity than others, then it puts huge burden on me. And sometimes I crack. I can't do it all the time. I am now in a cracked period. I'm so exhausted from so often compensating for where there are capacity limits around me. And that is the reality. So the best I can think of is it's going to take me some while to do enough mourning, to find enough acceptance, to reconnect with infinite willingness, which is the foundation of nonviolence, and see what I can do. And in the meantime, I'm suffering. And the capacity around me isn't necessarily going to change before I stop suffering, because I've been through this cycle many times. That's it. That's the reality of life. Capacity varies. If you have more than others, that puts a burden on you. And I don't know a huge amount about you. I know that you have particularly difficult circumstances. And any of us who deal with particularly difficult circumstances and manage, some of us crumble in the face of difficult circumstances, but those of us who do and we manage, we develop more capacity. And in a world of separation, having more capacity is a punishment. You get punished, not is a punishment. You get punished for having more capacity by having more expected of you.
Yeah.
One of the things, though, is to not fall into the trap of you have to, because you don't.
Yeah, I'm seeing that there's a discernment piece, where instead of just, oh no, let's hold everything, let's decide together, let's share power. And there are spaces where, yeah, it's just so far beyond capacity, it'll break. It'll break me. So
Yes, and then there is something that the framing of this sentence didn't come to me. It came to a former apprentice. She said, sometimes a unilateral decision is an act of care. So I'm thinking back to your son or to whoever the strangers are. And I'm wondering if after however many years your son is alive, whether you might expend less energy by just telling your son, rather than trying to guess what will work for you and hear from you. I'm going to try this for 3 days without us having dialogue. And at the end of 3 days, I will check with you how well it worked.
Yeah.
Informing yourself with all you know from past times, but not necessarily requiring him to do something that he probably can't do.
Yeah.
But he will communicate. He will find a way to communicate when something doesn't work for him,
Oh,
because even infants do.
yeah. Yeah, totally. I'm really appreciating the piece of checking back, because there I find myself so often going into what I sense as protective use of force. We don't have time to do the dialogue. This is what we have to do to keep moving. And yeah, thank you. That's really valuable.
There was one more thought and it disappeared. I think if I wait, it will come back. It's gone.
No worries. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Melanie. I have a sense this is our longest conversation ever, isn't it?
Between the two of us, yes.
Yeah. I'm appreciating it a lot. Yeah.
Me too. Thank you.
I am biased in your favor because of Terry. You know that.
I wonder sometimes how much she might have shared.
Not a huge amount, but just so much appreciation of you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Who else? Christine.
Hi. I'm nervous.
Why you?
I'm realizing as I come to these things and I have something I want to put my hand up for, and then I choose not to. And then I grapple with myself, like, what is it making you so nervous? And I realized there's a lot of people and none of them know me. And I'm really comfortable talking. I'm used to talking, but usually in contexts where a lot of the people know me. I mean, they know what I do in the world. They know why, I'm often the reason why they're there, even if they don't know me. And I've kind of gotten out of the practice of being myself in front of a bunch of strangers that don't, and also in a context that isn't my native place. So I feel like a new person and a visitor here. And
I am wondering if there's something that is similar to me, which is being used to being in a leadership position there is a particular way that people orient to me.
Mhm.
When I don't have that position and there isn't a particular structure or purpose that organizes things, I don't actually know what to do with myself. Not because I need to be the leader, but because the pathways are not clear.
Yeah. And I haven't, which you're thinking, it just makes me think of when I was a waitress a bazillion years ago and I was a single mom and I had a kid, a 3-year-old. I always knew what to do when I got off work. I had to go home and feed the kid. And then he would be with his dad sometimes, and I would get off work and I would step outside the door of the restaurant and I would go, who am I? What do I have to do? Like I don't know what to do with myself without having to go home and pick up the 3-year-old from daycare and deal with him for, like I just didn't know what to do with myself. And it's kind of like that, only it feels a little more revelatory and weird. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's very similar. Yeah.
By the way, I also don't know what you do in the world.
No, I know.
Okay.
Which is fine. You don't need to.
No, I'm just endlessly curious. Curiosity is my main driver, but don't answer. Now is not the time. It's not on purpose.
No. I know. It doesn't matter. But a piece of it is, okay, so this sharing of impacts is a thing that I've been married for 34 years to a man after having been in relationships, lots of differently gendered relationships, and for a decade before that. And he and I sort of accidentally found our way into a constant, very deep, very immediate practice of sharing impacts. So we do this all the time, every day. Like we're going for a walk and somebody uses the wrong word, and then the other's like, and then we sort of go. And then, within 3 blocks or 4 blocks, sometimes not until we get back in the house, we're just like so thrilled that we know each other and we're so more bonded and we're so more happy to be together. And so I can say that sharing impacts for me is like a key to everything in the universe, power and privilege and love and togetherness. And it just feels very, very deep and crucial to me. And I have not trained in nonviolent communication, and we didn't have a structure. We didn't have a how to do this. We just had enough trust and togetherness that we've figured it out and come to it naturally. And so when I came across your work and I came across Emma's articles, I was just like, oh, yes, that's exactly what has to happen. Like that's really important and necessary in the world. And so I've been talking, so I have this community practice. The core group is like maybe 8 of us. And I've tried to share impacts in the past and it just flops. Either people get defensive or it just gets not heard and not metabolized. And I've felt very frustrated and controlled by this whole dynamic. So at this point, we've had a conversation about sharing impacts. I've shared some of your writing. We've kind of got this collective agreement that we're going to learn how to practice this. And I'm looking for how to help them understand it better and how to help them practice it better, because I still feel it's like there's a degree of oh, it's calling in and we're going to do this and and I'm like
All right. I think there is a kind of like a lot of dust to get out of the way that I want to do in relation to what you said, which is I want to roll back to we are here today talking about decision making.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about building relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Decision making is a different area of human engagement than impact sharing for building intimacy, which is what you're doing with your husband. It's an entirely different world. And your community thing, it's not clear to me if they signed up for deep intimacy. if they did, then it's like what you have with your husband. If not, then it's a question of what is the shared purpose that brings you together, this group of 8, into this community, and what are the impacts that are necessary to share for that purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not expecting marital level sharing with.
Okay, and to go back to decision making,
Mhm.
the impacts that are needed for making decisions are not necessarily the same impacts that are needed for restoring trust when trust was broken, or for I can't right now think. I'm actually quite tired, so from this exhaustion that I named before, so my brain isn't working to produce more examples. But different contexts lend themselves to different layers of impacts.
Yep. Yeah.
So while on some level we can say impact sharing has steps A, B, C, D,
Yep.
it's always qualified by context and purpose. So I'm leery of making impact sharing the goal rather than a practice designed for what?
Yeah, it's not the goal.
Okay, what's the goal?
Well, the goal is to create to further this field that I founded that has to do with a kind of mapping of social systems to, I don't want to tell you the whole thing because it's not, but
No.
there's a purpose.
So it's in relation to a particular purpose.
And part of the purpose is to have a transformational culture and to spread that. So dealing with power and privilege and dealing with with patriarchy, capitalism, all of it is part of shifting away from those things, is part of the value system of the community of practice, and it's part of the intention, is explicit intention of those. There are more people at further out rings. I'm not talking about them.
Yeah. So then I would say this is outside the scope of today's focus. And you know, it might be beneficial for you to bring someone in from NGL to actually support the group in learning the practice and tailoring it to your specific needs and context.
Well, I would love that if that was if there was capacity, if that was a possibility, I would be thrilled.
Let's operationalize this. Do you have, is there anyone here? Dylan, are you willing to give Christine your email so that she could send you the request, and then we'll figure out who to pass it to?
Sure thing. I will do that in the chat. Does that work for you, Christine?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, will do.
All right. Other questions? Lots of people here. I can't imagine that you just, based on what we did, you know exactly how to make decisions in this simple way across power and privilege. So what's keeping you from asking the questions that will help you make this actually a reality? Fine.
Okay, I'll ask a question before I go. When Aurelia and I delivered the session on needs, impacts, and resources in this organization recently that I mentioned at the start, my impression was that when we spoke to them about needs, impact, resources to make decisions, it kind of made sense to a certain extent. It's like they came back and said, yeah, that's how we're already doing it. And I think the thing that really anchored this topic was when we actually shared the possibility of anchoring the practice into an organizational system. So your slide in particular about like to make a decision about how to sequence, like to have different steps to make decisions. So for example, if I know that particular decisions are going to impact different people in different ways, then when we come to make a decision about a particular situation that's relevant to that area, then I have a sense of who I need to consult first, who I need to talk to, and then next and next. So that's a system that anchors how to do needs, impact, and resources within a collective. And I'm wondering, and so I've been wondering whether actually until we reflect on how to have a system by which we are going to look at needs, impact, and resources, it stays quite abstract until we have a deep practice of doing it on a day-to-day basis. And I guess my question is yeah, maybe I'm answering my question. It's like we need, my sense is that we need a community of practitioners to be able to really get into the muscles of, it's a practice of mindfulness. It's like, yeah, what just asking myself, okay, well, what needs that at play, what impacts are going to be created most likely. It's like I don't have a sense that this is something that I can anchor in myself if I'm on my own with it. And I don't know if
No,
that
but
brings
you
up
can have
anything
a
in your.
piece of paper that would be your system. You can have a piece of paper that has a few questions on it.
Yeah.
A system doesn't have to be very complex. Having a piece of paper that, and you're with another person and you say, hang on, I don't have it integrated. I need to look at my paper. Okay, now my question to you is X. People will be fine with it. I will never forget the story that Marshall told about his son coming to him to ask if, to go play with friends or something. And Marshall responded very slowly. And at some point, his son got really flustered and said, Dad, why is it taking you so long? And he said, here's what I would say if I spoke fast. Do as I say, or I'll kill you. Daddy, take your time. So I think that people, when they really understand the depth of the difference that it makes to do things in this way, that removes the layers of judgment and blame and separation and mistrust, they would be willing to move more slowly. And yes, this ultimately we cannot get all the skill that is necessary to create the transformations we want as one individual after another. It needs to be anchored in processes and systems that are beyond any one individual's skill. And an organization like the one you trained would be a perfect candidate for that if they are up for it, if they have the energy to invest into it. Within NGL, we agreed on day one that advice process was going to be one of our core decision-making practices. And it took about 4 or 5 years before that actually got integrated to where now people do advice processes in a normal way, like that's a normal thing to do. Not something that the special people do, something that anyone can do. So I'm wondering if that's enough.
Yeah, it's enough. It's been, I'm glad I asked the question. I wasn't sure I had a question, but just a comment and, share a shared experience, and then something came up. Yeah. Now, particularly like the idea of a piece of paper to just to remind ourselves when we're on our own with it, to follow the steps and just see what comes out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to leave you now.
Okay.
And I'm delighted I took part in this session.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure when you come.
You're welcome.
All right. Tired day today for everyone, apparently. Hannah,
Hi, I'm feeling a little bit like I shouldn't ask a question, just because I spoke before, and also because I'm wondering if this question has already been sort of answered and I just haven't kind
yes,
of got it.
You externalize internal processes that keep people quiet, especially women.
Yeah.
And it's, I can't remember the exact words, but there's a sign, something like women who behave well don't make history.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, so my question is, when you're information gathering, information sharing, and your decision involves people, I'm thinking particularly of very young children, how do you make sure that their needs get on the table? Do you have to rely on them being able to express their needs? Do you have to guess or intuit their needs? And as a kind of, or should they kind of be personally involved? Obviously, when possible, that would be my preference. But also a wider question: how do we try to get on the table the needs of non-humans as well? And what if we just can't know what those needs are? Do we just try our best and experiment and see what happens? And how do we deal with this uncertainty, I guess?
I just first want to honor you for all of these questions. I'm not going to remember all of them. I just want to honor you for bringing that layer into the space. It is so important, and we are so inept collectively, not you and I specifically. And I have every reason to believe that our long, long, long ago ancestors had more answers to this than we do, because they didn't have so many layers of separation from self, other, and life. So I can only offer guesses. First, when it comes to involving young children in decision making, there are ferocious divergences. Ferocious. There are people who say that it's detrimental to young children to try to involve them in decisions. So you need to decide for yourself. Nobody can tell you how to do that. I'm not of that camp, but I wanted to let you know that that exists. My beloved sister in Bal, who died 10 years ago, created a whole synthesized or distilled. I don't really know what to say. To say created is too much, because she learned a lot from Marshall Rosenberg. But it's still, I would say, she created a whole approach to parenting within nonviolent communication. And she has a bunch of articles. I think they are in different places, at least some of them. There's an article where she describes a situation. At the time, her son, my nephew, was 3. And there was a friend who came with his son, who was a year and a half or a little younger. So not particularly verbal. And they were getting ready to leave. And the younger one was holding on to a little truck that my nephew was going to leave with it. And it was his only truck. So both the dad and my nephew were kind of like getting ready to take it from him. And she said, no, let's try to talk it out. And she was connecting with that little boy, explaining things to him, empathizing with him, guessing his needs, guessing her son's needs, guessing the father's needs, keeping the son, everyone away from trying to solve this. At a certain point, she thought she had a solution. Maybe my nephew could give him another car, of which he had many, so he would take the car and leave the truck. So he went and brought the car, gave him the car. He took the car, but didn't give back the truck. So that path didn't work. And she just stayed with it. And at a certain point, the thing that everybody tells you would never happen, happened. He walked over to my nephew and gave him the truck, just like that. And then they left. He wasn't verbal. He didn't participate, but he did participate. Now, why did he give the truck? What's your guess about why he gave the truck, which he clearly wanted to leave with? What's anybody's guess, if not Hannah?
I'm
You have a
wondering
guess?
if I've got a guess. My guess is he saw that nobody was going to take it and he stopped feeling the need to hold on to it.
That's part of it. Yeah.
Maybe he recognized the importance to the other person, how much he valued it.
He probably was able to see that in part because of what Hannah said. When our own needs are not encroached upon, we have more room to see others' needs. Anything else that anybody thinks was going on in that scenario that made it possible for that thing to happen? Yes, Carlota.
I think your nephew modeled the thing he was asking for and didn't freak out after he gave it away. So there was a clear pathway being taught, not asked, but taught.
I love that. That one I didn't think of. To understand this a bit more. Oh, yes, Randy.
Also, it appears to me that power was taken off the table.
Yes. Yes, thank you. So to shed light on the thing that feels very strong within me, I'll tell another story about my nephew that happened a few years later. He was 6 and it was Jewish New Year. And in Bal, my sister was suggesting that all of us look at the past year and have a sense, kind of like sense how much of the time this or that need that we have were met. And so he would rattle off, my need for freedom was met this % of the time, my need for this was met this % of the time. In the process, Inbal made an interesting discovery because he said that his need for freedom was met 50% of the time, and his need for contribution or generosity was met 50% of the time. And she pieced it together that that was his way of explaining interdependence. But then he said that his need to know that his needs matter was met 100% of the time. And that is the missing piece. Yes, it means the power was off the table. Yes, it means that he knew that it wasn't going to be imposed on him. And at the deepest level, he was taken seriously, this little one, that people of that size and age almost never are taken seriously and fully as full participants in making something that will work for everyone. And when you feel it, then things change. He finally got it. I am part of this situation. I am taken in. I am engaged with people care about me, not in verbal terms. He didn't know that language. At the body level, he felt it. And when you feel it, things change. And that ultimately is what we need to give each other, is the sense that you matter and I matter too. Both of us matter. And let's just figure out how to work it out. Yeah.
In your first example with the giving of the truck back, it almost seems like that boy was freed up to find the solution himself.
Yeah.
He saw his power and he gave his solution.
Yes. And sometimes this will involve a conversation. Sometimes this will involve modeling. Sometimes this will involve you making a decision. Sometimes it will involve you following their decision without them even saying that that's their decision. It's not like there's one size fits all, but it's the fundamental reverence for everyone's life and dignity. And I think that's what you want. I see in how you asked that that is what you want.
Yeah.
And now the ancestral bit that I knew comes, which is if you read Braiding Sweetgrass, have you read that book?
Yes.
You don't take something from a tree or a plant or an animal without asking for permission. And you learn to sense. You learn to sense when permission is given. And that sense, are you actually hearing it from the tree? Or are you actually so not separate from the tree that you hear it within yourself, as if you are the tree, as if the tree is you, as if you and the tree are both something else? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think we'll ever know that. I don't know. There was so much in your question. If there's more, let me know. I'll be so happy to answer. If I know.
I can't think of something else right now. I need to digest a lot of the things that I'm learning. So
how are you feeling,
thank you.
Hannah?
I'm feeling positive and curious about how to try to order everything that's going through my head and try to enact it in my life.
That's what you're thinking, I think. But what's the feeling? What's the actual sensation? What's going on in your heart? I want to land with you, and I don't have a sense that I have. And I might be mistaken. There's not enough light in your environment for me to be able to see. It's okay.
I think how I'm feeling. I think I'm feeling curious and also uncertain. Maybe it's because a lot of what you say is resonating with me, and I'm also thinking of various moments recently in my life where various of my young children have been in conflict with each other, and I don't have the capacity in terms of time to try to slow everybody down enough to find a solution in the moment. So it feels very messy to me how to move forward in that kind of situation.
Thank you. You're reminding me of the thing that was left dangling from me from your original question, which I knew it was there, but I didn't remember it. And that is your talk of uncertainty,
Mhm.
and which came back. So I'm really glad for that. Is there any
Yeah.
chance for light?
I will put the light on. Hang on. Yeah.
Oh, much better.
Yeah.
So I don't know why today is pulling out a lot of personal stories. When my sister who died had cancer for 7 years, during which time my relationship with uncertainty shifted into uncertainty becoming a friend and truth and the deepest layer of what is true about life. And so that's what I want to say. Uncertainty is not something to fear. It's something to befriend, because the goal of certainty is a patriarchal goal that tries to control life. You cannot have certainty without controlling. So there is something about releasing control and being with a mess and surrendering to it and being curious about what we can discover together. That I think if you can bring it to your children, there might even end up being less mess. And one last thing is, when you're not able to slow everyone down for any number of reasons, including your own capacity limits, name your capacity limits. Don't put it on them. They are not the problem. Our systems are the problem.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
look forward to seeing you again. I have a sense that this isn't the last time.
Thank you.
All right.
Did you mean our nervous systems are a problem, or?
No.
Sys-
I mean the bigger systems that we live in. No. Our nervous systems work just fine. Yeah. Randy.
Ooh, hello. Decision making around capacity.
Mhm.
Um, especially when working with people who are deeply rooted in the system
Mhm.
or systems. I wonder about, I've been thinking a lot about my approach to
Mhm.
situations, and I come up with like the most gentle, what I think is the most gentle way to approach something is to ask questions.
Mhm.
And I wonder what those questions, like I question what the questions are, because is that the right question? I don't want to alienate them further, or when is it okay
Examples
of a situation?
of a question.
I'm not sure. That's why I think I'm asking.
So
You spoke about last time, there was this, a goal to make a map so people can zoom in and out, for doing this to learn the practices of this work. And you were speaking to capacities.
when you say last time, what are you referring to?
But in the recording,
This was months ago. I have
yeah, okay,
way less than zero memory.
okay. What are we actually going to do to grow these capacities? What are the questions that we can ask that we need to look at to grow the capacity?
So when I am in the process of trying to make a decision, I want to ask questions that will bring forward the information that is necessary for us to make the decision. That's what is going to guide me. There is something that I discovered many years ago, which is this. If I ask the right question, and I will say what I mean by the right question in a moment, I can jump up people's capacity for the moment because I get them to focus their attention elsewhere. It doesn't change their overall capacity, but it creates a momentary capacity leap that can give me the information that I want. I'll give an example of what I mean. And that was the moment when I made this realization. I was working with some organization that was going through a CEO transition. It was a care organization for the elderly. So it was ostensibly a nonprofit, although there was nothing about it that felt like a nonprofit, but that is aside. They had the CEO, chief this, chief that. It somehow didn't feel like a nonprofit to me. And the CEO was leaving, and they hadn't found another one. So they were facing the possibility that the 5 chiefs of whatever it was would need to run the organization together until they had a new CEO. So that's what I was trying to help them with that day. And as we talked about it, they very quickly all saw that the most important thing that they needed to learn quickly was how to make decisions together.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, fine, let's try it out, see how you are in the process of making decisions together. What is a decision that you need to make in this transition that is going to be small enough that we can actually digest it in like 1 hour? And they came up with whatever the decision was. I don't remember. And I said, okay, let's hear from each of the 5 of you. What would be the way that you would want to handle this particular situation and why? And they gave 5 different answers, and the 5 answers were all over the place, very different, fully divergent. Then I did this. I said, I want you now, after having heard from everyone, I want you to think what might be a way to make this decision that will work for everyone. That was the question. And I said to them, just raise your hand when you think you have a solution. Don't say it, because I didn't want them to influence each other's thinking. So they each raised their hand when they had a proposal. And when they all had it, I asked them to say their 5 proposal. So if the first one was all over here, the second one was here. And within 5 minutes, we tweaked this or that proposal, and we had a decision that they all said this is fine. And so that question, what is a solution that will work for everyone, is a question that invites people to a higher level of functioning. They won't sustain it because although we have the capacity for that kind of collaboration, it's not our habit. So 5 minutes later, they will forget it. They will remember the solution they came up with, but not the question that got them there. So if you're asking me what are the questions that we need, it's questions that will catapult people into visionary functioning for the moment, even though you know it will revert back.
I think that's why I was so stuck on this piece when you said it in the video before, because I had so much grief around it. Like, what are the questions? What's the questions don't matter because it's not part of the solution. That the bigger picture, like I'm all the things that need to be fixed. So that's why I'm like, why do I have so much grief around this? And I think you just named it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll give you two more questions that have a similar flavor. One is, what is important to you in relation to this decision? It's a very simple question. And another one is, what's the most important bit of information for us to know about your circumstances? I love telling you this because I know you'll put it to good use. And so will others, but I know that specifically about you.
I appreciate you bringing in those questions.
Yeah. These are questions that pull people out of the ongoing swamp of narratives that we are in.
And I could see it could potentially be an opening for some to deepen in understanding needs, impacts, and resources.
Yes. Yeah, this is not the end of questions. What's the biggest gift you have to offer to our collective in this exploration, whatever? It's not like a short list. It's a way of asking questions.
And I believe it would be situational as well. You know, each situation is so different. So
yes, but there is a cutting through layers quality to the questions that I believe help.
yeah, I imagine deepening into my own self-examination will help me for those to arise and emerge easier.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can I also just share, I was very hesitant to ask a question because I do ask questions a lot. So I was waiting and waiting, but was really burning inside me, so I wanted to ask.
Thank you. All right. Probably one more brief one. Dylan.
Hi, around the, are you open to a quick suggestion and then a question? Or just a question? Which do you prefer?
I don't know. Just try me.
Okay, so the suggestion is that when I've noticed oftentimes there comes to a place where we're in this thing, and the questions kind of stop. And I know from going into the breakout room that the three people in there had three pretty reasonable questions to bring, and they're not. And so I would invite you to consider saying, okay, I'm opening it to everyone, which you have done sometimes. And I think that gives people that kind of like what Randy just said, as I really had a question, but I was being back, so it is a practice.
Opening it to everyone as opposed to.
No. When you say at the beginning, I really invite you to learn how to participate through listening, learn what you can receive.
Yeah.
Right? And then shifting it to, I really want to hear from everyone.
Ah, got it. Got
Okay.
it. Got it.
That's a
Yes.
possibility to play with. Right?
Yes. Right. Okay. Thank you.
And
Yes,
then my
thank you.
question is also about questions, but instead of the visionary way, it's more the practical self-responsibility kind of way, because you did talk about the need for self-responsibility in the name of lessening, like either lessening the impact things have on me, so I'm not reactive, or lessening my making others reactive to a certain extent. But the questions I had were to Verin's comment, and your response was, what needs are in play, what impacts are likely to be created, and what are my resources? That's kind of the whole thing you're talking about here. Do you have additional, more honing in questions on on each category, like what needs are in play? Is there an additional one or two questions that I could ask myself to help me, because I was going to write the paper and I'm like, what other questions could I ask? And I said, well, I'll just ask. And I would almost ask if anyone else has any ideas on what or what questions they ask, if they'd put them in the chat, just so as a larger resource as well.
What do I think should happen, and what does that tell me about my needs?
What do I think should happen? That's because if I'm using should, we know where that ends up. So that's a tough one. What do I think should happen? Okay. That's a good question. Wow.
What do I not like about what's happening? And what does that tell me about my needs?
Okay. So to look at the places of pain, kind of.
Not necessarily pain, just at the places where the thinking is stuck.
Ah. Okay. And so that's kind of a couple good ones for my needs, to look at where my thinking is stuck. And then there's what impacts are likely to happen and what are my resources, were the other two areas that you had named. So
yeah, in resources, it's not just what are my resources, it's what is the capacity, and that is both the capacity limits and the gifts that I bring.
Okay. Nice.
It's one of the places where decisions break down is people making decisions and agreements that require resources they don't actually have.
Yes. I've seen that where it's like, I'll help, and having no idea at all what's entailed and how it's not beneficial for anyone, myself or anyone else, so recognize capacity limits. And the middle one is
impact.
How would I notice what impacts are like, or what question would I ask related to impacts to help me? Like, is that where the pain is? Is that
yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Is there anyone I'm blaming?
Oh.
For anything that's going on?
Sure.
What am I blaming them for? What's the internal experience of that?
Yeah, I would say, I would ask myself, is there a they that I'm talking about? Somewhere in this
There you
question.
go.
Is there a they? Who is they? Maybe. Okay, that's and I really do want to invite anyone else who might be playing with this idea about what more questions to put it in the chat if you want to. That'd be really helpful if you would.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone who has a question who thought that you were not welcome to speak? It won't be a long one, but if you have one and you thought you were not going to be welcome, I'm very sad if that's the message I conveyed. No. All right then. Ah, there is. Wow.
Hey, um, this it's not a specific question. I'm figuring it out, but basically it's about how to um take decisions accepting my needs and my resources and the impacts that I have. Because in taking decisions about my own life or uh, yeah, how to manage things or which way to go in different areas, I find myself sometimes not recognizing what things I need or what impacts I might have on other people or this is having on myself. And I do sometimes just take decisions based on fear or pain, and I struggle to mm, be conscious of my needs on the daily little decisions about my life. Just, yeah, I
And you
think that's
want
it.
to increase that capacity.
Yes, I want to be more conscious of my impacts, needs, and resources.
So you start after the fact. You made a decision and you don't like the outcome. At that point, you have the felt sense of it. So that tells you, like, okay, what were needs of mine that I didn't include in the decision? I now know because I got the impact. What's the impact that I go? What does that tell me about what needs I had at the time? And what resources did I ignore or limits did I overstretch through or something like this? So you can learn by when we fail, I'm putting it in quotes, in any way, we try to distance ourselves from the failure. It's like, okay, I'll try again. If you rigorously use every opportunity in which something fails for learning, your capacity will grow very quickly.
Thank you.
Because after the fact, you have more information, so it can help you. Overall, I, I don't know where you are in the world. Most places in the world do not train us in school to identify our needs, to engage with our feelings, to know what is happening with us, to assess our capacity, to know what our gifts are, to know what our limitations are. It just is not what we're trained to do. What we're trained to do is what should you do? How do you cover your ass so that people will not find out about your shortcomings? It's not the life of information, it's the life of hiding that we're learning. Hiding and lashing out. So it doesn't surprise me that it would be difficult to know what your needs are. All right? Thank you, Paul.
Thank you too.
All right, now let's hear from a few folks. What are you walking away with from having been here today? Caitlin.
Hi, I feel very moved by this session, actually. I'm just in a kind of process of trying to reconnect more actively with MVC and NGL work. And I'm really thankful that I came. I feel really ill-equipped for being here, like I haven't done enough prep or reading or anything. And also
Sometimes cheating works.
that is what I did. And I'm really glad I did and came, and thanks for all of the contributions and questions. I feel like really moved and thoughts provoked, and lots of things to take forward. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's most meaningful for me to hear, Leslie and Cassidy, is you probably know one specific thing that you're taking with you, if there is one. Leslie.
I really loved some of those questions that you gave to Randy, and I'm thinking about places where I could ask them. That last little piece with Pau, kind of like, you've given me material to reflect on places where I wish it had gone differently.
Yeah. Thank you. Cassidy? There is an unmute button. You'll find it. I can help. I can help.
Thank you. I'm taking uncertainty as something to befriend.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. If that's it, then that's it. Until some other time. Thank you very much for coming here, participating in this not very easy exploration. Bye now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good job, Tex. Good
Thanks.
job, Tex.